Hi, this is Goose, the producer of the RV Show USA, and you are in store for some great recorded content from the RV Show USA with your RVing wingman, Alan Warren.
And hello, everybody. Alan Warren here, and Happy New Year to you. I hope you're off to a great start to 2019. You can keep up with us on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. In the search bar, just type in the RV Show USA. It'll be the first thing that pops up. All right, so as our regular listeners know, as your RV wingman, I'm pretty much a consumer advocate and RVer's advocate, and I try and help as many folks as possible if they have a legitimate problem with their new RV or their RV dealer. I am not a lawyer. I don't even play one here on the radio. But I do have a little bit of common sense, and I never, ever, ever quit. And I love to help people if I can. Now, this hour of the RV Show USA is about education. It's about helping people by talking about the sometimes ugly side of RVing and RV ownership. As a campground owner myself and your humble host, in my opinion, too many new RVs are not built as well as they should be. And too many RV dealers provide awful, dreadful service after the sale. Of course, that makes some owners pretty ticked off, but you know what? It is not always the dealer's fault or the manufacturer's fault. As RVers, especially buyers of new RVs, we have a responsibility to know what we are getting into, and it's our responsibility to read the paperwork, read the fine print, to understand the purchase, the warranty, all of it, to do the complete inspection before we take possession. All that is our responsibility. If we do what we are supposed to do, and then we get a bad RV, or a dealer does something illegal or swindles you, well, that's a different story, and that's where your RV wingman will try and help you. So one of the greatest Christmas presents I received this year was from someone that we tried to help that had a really serious issue with their RV dealer. Now, because of now a non-disclosure agreement, I will not mention their name or the dealer, anything more than simply saying that for many months ago, I saw something happening, and I said, you know what, this is wrong. People can't be treated like this. At least it seemed that way to me. And I did my very best to help a family that needed it. And you know what? It worked. It wasn't easy, didn't happen overnight, but it worked. So what was my Christmas present? It was a voicemail I got. Literally, I got it Christmas Eve. Talk about making me feel good. Take a listen. Here's the voicemail right here.
Hello, Alan. I'm calling to say thank you. It's been several months since the first time that we were in contact with each other. And, there was a point in time where I felt like giving up against some pretty crazy things regarding an RV. And you had my back the entire way. I want to thank you for giving me the confidence to move forward with everything, and I want to thank you for doing all the research that you do on a daily basis to keep everybody informed on what they should expect out of an RV and what isn't right when it comes to RVing and dealing with dealerships and service departments and things like that. Really, from the bottom of my heart, my family, myself, we just want to thank you for sticking with us, pushing us in the right direction, giving us the confidence to go forward, and not letting us give up on what we knew what was right. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a fantastic New Year.
How nice was that, folks? Not only was I able to help somebody, not only did they get their problem resolved, but they actually called and thanked me. Talk about motivation. You may think it's no big deal, but to me, I'm telling you, it is a really big deal, and I feel so blessed to have been able to help those people. Again, due to a non-disclosure agreement that they had to sign and all that kind of stuff. I can't go into detail, but I want you to know how your RV wingman gets his inspiration. It's by helping people that have done everything right, but who still have a problem RV and a bad dealer issue, and I help as best I can. So somebody else that helps people with experiences that are bad, but who has that deep in the gut feeling of pride when they help them is our good friend, RV Lemon lawyer Ron Burge, who's on our guest line. Happy New Year, Ron.
Well, Happy New Year to you too, Alan. Great to be here.
I can't tell you what that phone call meant to me. It was and I guess you get that kind of inspiration all the time by helping people, don't you?
It is true. It does happen, and it really feels good. So I know exactly what you mean when you realize that you've done something right to help somebody make their life a little better and a little easier.
I want to ask you before we jump into we got you for the entire hour, and that's great, and I appreciate you spending the time with us. But what's the deal with these NDAs, these non-disclosure agreements? On Facebook and social media, we see these arguments that are going back on these claims. It's like watching a football game, and it's coming to a head, and then all of a sudden, poof, it just disappears, and nobody knows what happened. I guess tell us about that. Why do manufacturers do that? What's the story?
It is funny. It doesn't seem like it ought to be right, but it is perfectly legal for somebody to sell, so to speak, their right to free speech by saying, okay, if you pay me, then I will agree that I will not tell people what you did, or I won't tell them what you did to settle with me. It seems morally wrong, but legally, like many other situations, legally it's perfectly legal to do it that way. Although there are some cases that are turning against that around the country, but they are few and far between.
So I guess that after somebody's been struggling, trying to get whole or trying to get some resolution, and then there's a carrot dangled out there, look, we're going to write you a check for so much, but you got to promise to say nothing. The temptation is so great, they just want to get the money and move on.
I don't know if it's a matter of the temptation being so much. It is that they just simply grow weary of the fight, which is sad in many ways. The big business entities that RV companies are in most cases, they have the ability, because of simply budgeting large portions to their defense fighting costs, their attorney fees and such, where they can afford to fight, and in many cases they will try to do exactly that instead of simply stepping up to do what's right. And fundamentally, they will wear out the customer in many cases. But the reality is that the people who fight the longest usually get the most, and the people who are willing to fight the hardest, those people will usually get the most out of what they have a right to get. But the reality is, at the end of a long, hard fight, or near the end of it, it's very tempting when the RV company says, look, just promise you won't tell anybody what we did, and we'll give you back your money, or we'll pay you this much money, or whatever it is that they're offering to do, which may entice a consumer to have to seriously decide, do I want to keep fighting because it's right, or do I just want to take the money and go home and be rid of the problem?
Make it go away. What percentage of RV lawsuits actually go to trial? I mean, generally speaking, they can't be very many. I don't hear of that many.
There are very few. In fact, the word on a number of manufacturers out here is that, and by out here I mean out here in the legal world, so to speak, is that basically they will fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight, and then they'll settle when they get close to the courthouse doors. And that's true for a lot of manufacturers, not just simply RV companies. But the reality is that there's a lot of money at stake when they get to the point of the courtroom door. And that usually is when they, in fact, do tend to settle the cases. Now, how many of them actually go to trial? I'd say probably somewhere around 2 to 3% of the lawsuits that are filed against RV companies by consumers actually go to trial. It's very, very seldom, simply because the process fosters settlement negotiations very intensively anymore.
What's the process in less than a minute? Describe the process. How does somebody go about making a claim against a manufacturer or dealer?
In many cases, it depends on who the manufacturer is, because there can be different processes. But essentially, you have to set it up right before you ever go to a lawyer by making sure that you've complained properly and steadily and continuously and documented everything very carefully, kept good records, kept a good diary of what you said and what they said back to you and such. The better you do that work before you ever see a lawyer, the less likely it is you'll need one, and the more likely it is that you'll win your case or force the factory to settle good with you before you ever get to a courtroom. But the first thing you got to do is prepare. The second thing you got to do is find yourself an RV lemon lawyer who knows RV law, because they didn't like other areas of law by any means. But find one who can help you and then follow their advice, and then file your case.
Hang on, Ron. We got to jump for a hard break, folks. Ron Burge, RV Lemon Lawyer, is on with us. We're going to pick it up after the break. You will not want to miss it. This is the RV Show USA. And we are back with one of our favorite guests on the RV Show USA. He's a lawyer who is intimately familiar with most likely every kind of legal issue in an RV scenario that there is, Mr. Ron Burge. So Ron, let's talk a little bit about 2018 in terms of how it was compared maybe with prior years regarding RV lawsuits.
Oh, that's an easy one. There's more of them. There's more of them. They're more serious. People have pretty much drawn the line on what they will put up with, and they're perfectly willing anymore, it seems like, to fight. And really, I was thinking during the break, what is it you got to do to really take on an RV company? And I think fundamentally it really boils down to you have to plan what you're going to do, you have to fight and be willing to fight, you have to participate in the process. You can't just simply turn it over to a lawyer. And also, don't quit. Absolutely, don't quit and don't give up and keep fighting. The times are different now than they were in 2017, and they are vastly different in terms of 10 years ago or 20 years ago. The industry is different, and lawsuits are being handled differently.
What are the general categories of lawsuits that make up the work that your firm does? I mean, are they quality issues, warranties, bad dealers? Is there an equal mix? I don't know. Are there any?
Well, bad dealers tend to be the minority of the cases. Dealers do things, no question about that. But the reality is that they don't need to do as much as auto dealers and other kinds of merchants might need to do in order to make extra profit, if you will, because there's so much profit in the process of selling an RV in the first place that they just need to get them out the door and get them over the curb to make their money. But on the other hand, quality, that's been an issue for God knows how long, and every indication is the issue isn't going away. The quality of RV construction and design and everything just really is woefully inadequate.
But they look good, don't they?
God, they look shiny. There's nothing like that shiny metal. And the truth of it is they're selling it bad quality with a great dream.
Yeah, that's the ugly truth. And not all of them are bad, but too many, as I say, too many of them are. How much profit is there for an RV dealer, Ron Burge, in general? When somebody buys an RV, how much money is the dealer going to make off that thing?
Depends on how far they go below the MSRP. As a general rule of thumb, you can figure that if you've got an RV, pretty much no matter what the price is, below $500,000, that roughly 1/3 of the MSRP is the dealer profit margin area. So if you've got an MSRP, and let's just use round numbers of, say, $300,000, then that means that the dealer probably bought that for somewhere in the area of $200,000, maybe a little less, not likely much more, from the factory. So the factory itself, they probably made it for somewhere around 1/3 of that MSRP. So they make a bundle when they get it over their curb, and then the dealer, depending on just how much of a deal he wants to give you, he can make a bundle when he gets it over the curb to you as the buyer, too.
Wow, that's a lot of money, a lot of profit these guys are making.
It is, and the margin actually gets higher for the dealer when you go above the $500,000 mark as a rule.
I assume you spend a lot of time in Indiana where the majority of RVs are made?
Yeah, I have. There's a lot of nice places to stay over there and have dinner and everything, and a lot of nice, friendly dealers and some factory people who are not quite so friendly, but at the same time, they understand what they're doing, too.
What are your thoughts on from your perspective, on what's happening now in the stock market with the big manufacturers? They're just tanking, the downward trend in stock prices of all the major manufacturers. What are your thoughts on that?
I tell you, it is really somewhat surprising, and yet really not quite so surprising. There was a great article in Wall Street Journal, I think it was, yesterday, talking about the profit margins and such, and looking at some specific things and at the industry in general. And it was really surprising. And I keep my thumb on the pulse in the industry, but I was quite surprised to see that Camping World was selling for just over $12 today. $12.83 a share, when a year ago they were about $100. Thor and Winnebago were also at about $100, just as an example, and they've also dropped tremendously in value. And they blame it on lots of things. Part of it is the blaming it on the tariffs for aluminum and steel and such, and what that does. And in fact, Thor put out a video, if I recall seeing it lately, that had to do with saying that the tariffs were a big part of their profit margin loss. But the reality is they're still making money. There's no question about that.
There's a lot of inventory that they need to sell, though, Ron. I just wonder how,
there is.
If somebody files a lawsuit now, if, they got a lemon RV they bought in 2019, if these stock prices continue to slide, how might that affect them if, Ron Burge is representing them or will it have any effect in resolving their claim, their issue?
Well, it ought to mean that there would be an easier time getting the RV replaced by way of a settlement, simply because you got a lot of metal sitting around the lots. You got a lot of RVs sitting around, and you've got factories that have cut back so that they don't keep building up the inventory either on their back lot or else on their dealers' lots. And the reality is there's a lot of inventory sitting out there. It's increased. And what's happening is the cheap towables are the ones that are selling now. And the motorized RV sales are the ones that are not selling so easy. So if you as a consumer are looking to buy a towable for under $50,000 nowadays, you ought to be able to get a pretty good deal, because those things are selling hot. But if you really want to get something that's cutting to the bone on the dealer's profit margin, that's going to be in the motorized RV sales in all likelihood.
I'll be dang. Well, we've got somebody on our live stream has got a couple of questions. Char Schneider wants to know, what lemon laws do you follow, and the state you buy in or your home state?
Typically, it's going to be the state you buy in, except you also have to look at the warranties, because there's a number of warranties nowadays that say that specific law in a specific state is what's going to apply. And typically, the Indiana manufacturers, there's several of the biggies, so to speak, that have in their warranty that Indiana law is what applies to all of your legal rights. And the reason they do that, quite frankly, is because Indiana's lemon law does not cover RVs, whereas other state lemon laws, there are some others that actually will cover parts of an RV, and a couple of them will cover the whole thing. But where you buy it is going to be the first thing to look at. And the second thing to look at is, what does your warranty say about what law applies?
I have heard that warranties on RVs, Ron, are not like, for example, if I have a Chevy truck and I break down in San Antonio, Texas, and I bought it in Missouri, I can still just go to a Chevy dealer. They're going to fix it because it's covered under the warranty. It's not that way with these RV manufacturers. Each one is independent. The dealer can fix it if they have the inkling, if they want to do it, but maybe because you didn't buy it from there, you don't get the attention that you would if you would have bought it from that particular dealer. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, but it's what they do. You're right. The reality is, you are very, very correct that if you buy a car, a brand new car from virtually any manufacturer's brand, you get it from one dealer in one state, you drive across the country, and on the way, something happens and you want to get a warranty item taken care of, they don't look at you twice. They just take care of the problem. They don't call the factory and ask for permission. They don't wait for parts to be shopped, to be shipped to them, or shop them at the local hardware store or whatever, which is what some of them will do. They don't go out and cannibalize one of the units sitting out on the back lot in order to get some parts to get you back.
All right, Ron, hang on. We got 5 seconds. Got to hit a hard break. Pick it up on the other side. This is the RV Show USA. Y'all hang on.